Hey everybody, welcome to IGN Unfiltered. It is our monthly interview show where we get industry personalities, luminaries, designers, you name it, interesting people in the video game world to talk to. We're going to be here, buckle up for the next hour plus. I've got plenty of questions for this man, my guest this week, Aaron Greenberg. Aaron, you are a marketing guru of sorts at Microsoft, but you're one of the almost original Xbox team members.
Sure, yeah. I think of all those descriptions, I'm not a visionary or a creator. It might be an interesting person.
You're an interesting person.
Okay, I'll take that. So, no, I've been on Xbox for going on 16 years now. I started there in early 2000, and before the PS2 launched, I was working on Xbox.
Yeah, if Xbox were its own company, you'd be like employee number 32 or something like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty early
right?
number. Yeah, and still here and still loving it and feel super fortunate to. I love games and I love this industry, and I feel really fortunate to be able to make a living doing this.
So you're always out there. You're in the community a lot. You've just been sort of at the ground floor of all things Xbox for so long, and I thought would be great to talk to you about. And I want to start with what your actual job is, because we start. We know you. We know you from the Xbox community. You're on message boards from time to time. You're on Twitter. You're you're always out there.
Sure.
But behind the scenes, so I have to read it to get it right. You're the General Manager of Global Product Marketing for first and third party games at Microsoft. Sorry, second party games. But yeah, what exactly does that mean?
Technically, I also have second party games, but we decided to shorten it a little bit. I will say, if you haven't learned, at Microsoft, we love really long titles.
Phil Spencer, head of Xbox. That's
except for Phil, he makes his own titles, so he breaks the rules. So basically what it means, first probably is I have the greatest job in the world. I get to work on marketing games. But my team we have what we consider a first party and a third party games team.
Yeah.
And we basically do, my short title would be head of games marketing.
So something like a Hunt the Truth campaign, stuff like that with Halo, that's all ultimately going to pass through you somewhere along the way?
Yeah, I mean, the way I would explain it is we do what we call product marketing. So we will work with the development studios very, very early on in the process. So we have people that have been, working on Quantum Break for quite a while, or people that are working on Halo for a number of years, or working with those studios on like the next 3 or 4 things each of these studios are doing.
Right.
And so we're the team working with them very, very early on and sort of helping scope and define the product and how do we think about different features or naming or pricing or launch timing and all the kind of more customer-centric inputs that help shape what the game actually is.
So did you name the Kinect? Is that an Aaron Greenberg joint?
I did not name the Kinect. I think things I've named. New Xbox experience I named. But that was a long time ago. So
well, then we brought it back, right?
We did bring it back.
we did bring it back. New Xbox One experience.
Yeah, there's a few things I've named, but and to be honest, it's hard because we are so team oriented. We operate as a team and we think about a lot of stuff and brainstorm a lot of stuff. But there's probably a lot of things over the years I've contributed to names on. I will tell you, I did not name things like Cockatoo Chojin was not mine. So I'll take, be clear, I didn't name everything.
So you just mentioned Quantum Break, which is a big upcoming exclusive for Xbox.
Yeah.
Do you get involved such that, because that game, you and I were talking off air before this, that it appears to me, I don't actually know, but obviously the game got recast with Shawn Ashmore and the Littlefinger.
Yes.
Sorry, I can never remember his name.
I just call him Littlefinger too.
But it seems like Microsoft invested more money into that game with the recasting, getting these name actors in an effort to presumably make it from like a to sort of up its sales potential, I would think, right? So is that a thing where you and your team get involved in that process, or is that something where you're told it happens and then you go, oh good, this makes my job so much easier and now I've got these actors to lean on?
Sure. Well, we do work up close with the studios teams early in that process.
Yeah.
We work very collaboratively. There'll be a studio head that will lead that. Usually within that they have someone that's more focused on art or more focused on kind of core engine or engineering, and we work with all those different groups. What we then do is we take that, and as we get closer to a year out, sometimes a little longer, we then go and we put together all the marketing plan and the strategy and everything around the product, and then we share it out with all of our different teams. So we have field teams, we have a creative team. So the teams that actually go and create the TV ads and work with the agencies to do that, we work with them, and we have a creative brief process, and we review and participate in that. We work with our PR teams, and so we're kind of in a hub and spoke model.
Yeah.
So we're sort of the point guards, if you will, of all this work. And ultimately kind of the owners of that process for marketing, but we do pass off a lot of stuff that people then go and do their own creative thing around it as well.
You're the Steph Curry of Microsoft.
Fair enough. Probably a lot of Warrior fans here, but. Yeah.
So what's your favorite? I mean, we're gonna turn back time and get into figure out how you got to where you are. But before I do, I'm curious, what's your favorite, campaign or Xbox related thing you've ever worked on? Because obviously there have been a lot of memorable ones over the years. I mean, Hunt the Truth recently was really great.
Yeah.
Especially the podcast, which was incredible.
Yeah.
And then everything from the jump in with 360 was a big one.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done a lot of creative stuff. I think you're right. I mean, I jumped in. I thought, and those were kind of the Peter Moore days. He was very hands-on into that creative process, and I think the Gears of War piece. I know he talked about Mad World.
Yeah,
was
he
incredible.
talked about that on our show.
Was something really, really special. I think they've done. I think that we've got, and a lot of the same people that are working with our creative agencies and managing that process today are the same people that have been doing it over the years. And so we're really lucky. We have the best creative team, I think, in the industry, or one of. And I know there's a lot of talented people out there. And so it's great to be able to sort of give them hey, here's the product, these are the characters, this is the story, whatever it may be. Here's how we're thinking about who the audience is, and then to kind of brainstorm and then work with the agencies, and they go off and bring back a bunch of ideas. And just that whole creative process is really fun. And like right now, we just are been reviewing 2 different pieces for Quantum Break, and we've got a digital ad and a TV ad. One's shot and done. The second one we're shooting now, and and it's an incredible process of how that all gets done. So I would say I realize I haven't answered either of your second or third questions.
You're such a marketing guy.
I feel bad. So first, to your question on Quantum Break, I'm a completionist though. So
let's do it.
We absolutely thought that Quantum Break has the potential to be an extremely innovative game that in many ways can define what a generation can be, and is a type of game that is what is a next gen game? What is a Gen 8 game?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of titles that's hey, this is a great game, but it also, how much different is it than what I played last gen? And Quantum Break, with the way they're thinking about the narrative, the storytelling, these two sort of, the hero and the protagonist back and forth, and then the ability to use live action as part of that, as a medium for them to tell their story, and just knowing what Remedy does, they've never made a bad game. They have incredible storytelling skills and what Sam Lake and that team does. And so giving them more tools and resources to go create something really, really special, absolutely a deliberate bet for us.
So
and we're seeing final previews of the game right now, and we're pretty confident the game's going to deliver.
I mean, that's why I think you're fascinating, is because you have the job that I think a lot of video game players don't think about, and that's a developer makes the game and they've got their vision for it, but it's on you to sell it, to figure out how do I engage the Xbox audience, or in your case, how to actually buy the game, because you could have a great game that has either no campaign or a terrible campaign, or there are bad games that have incredible campaigns and then they sell 50 million units and you get a big fat raise and a Mercedes and you're on your way. But it's so that side of it's really interesting to me. Without naming names.
Sure.
Have you ever taken something to a developer, so that this is how I think we should market this game, position this game, and they've just gone, wow, that is not at all what I was thinking for my game?
Of course. So I think you're right. I mean, first it is we market all the games. So, we know not all, one of the lines I say internally, people I say, we love all of our children, but they don't all go to the best schools, And so, so it's just the nature of what it is. And so we have to find what makes it unique about each of those. And some of them are big AAA blockbusters where we know we have a lot of resources, like Halo's an example, where We were on TV with The Walking Dead in the spring with the Chief and Lock piece, and then we had multiple beats up to the final gameplay trailer, and we had the podcasts and all this other stuff. So we had a lot of resources, and then there's other titles where we didn't have any money for TV. Most titles we don't go on TV for. And how do we market? What do we do creative more from a more scrappy standpoint? But all the strategic stuff about when do we announce things? What are the key beats? What events do we go to? What do we show? What demos do we show? What do we, we're heavily involved in all that. And it's a super collaborative process, but it is what makes the job so much fun. And you learn from everything. We're not going to get it all right, but when we do make mistakes or something happens, we go afterwards and we look back and we go, okay, we would have done this differently, and here's what we learned, and how do we kind of apply that to the next thing you do. To your point about and then we also, you think about, the creators are going off and making great games, and we're fortunate internally to have, some world-class, studios, whether it's 343 or Turn 10 or the guys at Coalition or, a lot of, even smaller teams that we work with through our publishing group. But we work with them on naming. What does the box art look like? What's the Viz ID, as we kind of industry call? So, and all that, and it's an iteration. We iterate and iterate and iterate, and so much of that is how do we take the essence of what they're trying to do, but then also frame it in a way that we will, when we do create the box, that it's got a central figure. There's some sort of key things to allow. How does it look on the shelf? How will it look on a website? And
usually a lot of blue and orange seem to be the two dominant colors on any given game box.
Yeah, and we have specialists. That's just what they do too,
yeah.
And we work with them on each of them. And so it's an interesting process. Absolutely, we have debates about stuff, and we debate it, and we, but the thing is just to listen and to learn, and ultimately, we don't always 100% agree on everything, but I think we have a good track record of at least understanding why we're making decisions and explaining them, and we don't just say this is what we're doing and too bad.
Yeah.
But we've had we have different teams. Some teams are want to be more involved in it. Other teams are kind of like, listen, we trust you guys. We're just going to make the game. Do what you want with it. And it just kind of depends on the group how detailed they are involved. And some of them, frankly, have incredible marketing skills, and we're like, that's genius, and that's better than our idea.
You can just take credit for it.
Totally.
Done.
We're like, yeah. Not all ideas come from us, so it's a good process.
And I've got to imagine that your job affords you at least. It's probably not monotonous, right? Monotonous, correct? Because you've always got a different game and a new challenge. You might be working on a Halo marketing campaign one day and a Cuphead campaign the next day.
Absolutely.
Right?
So we do first, second, and third party. So first party is obviously all of our exclusive titles, mostly internal studios, but we do have a lot of published titles.
Sure.
So like Scalebound with Platinum is a published title, as an example, or Sunset.
Even Remedy,
Quantum Remedy and Quantum, exactly. So a lot of the best game developers in the world will make games for us exclusively, but they want to stay independent. And so, that works out really well for us. But we also do second party. So Tomb Raider is an example of that. Now
that Tomb Raider caught a lot of flack from consumers, from gamers for, in fact, on my podcast, I was one of the people that kind of wondered, man, it seems unfortunate to take an established third-party thing and take it away from half the audience. And then we saw it, Sony's doing that same thing with Street Fighter V. Xbox players don't get that. Is that, do you get involved then in the messaging of that and trying to sort of make that work too? Because that sort of adds a whole nother, you got to go market the game. It was one of the big first-party published titles is your November game, which is the big slot that usually Halo is in the November slot.
Yeah.
But then does that just add a whole new series of headaches of trying to figure out, we got to sort of convince the fans that our heart's in the right place here?
Yeah, I think we absolutely learned a lot with Tomb Raider. And I don't think anybody could have predicted or expected the reaction and how, what it was like. And with that said, a lot of the titles that we invest in and the teams we invest in are things that we believe in.
Yeah.
And by providing that investment, strategically has a lot of benefits.
Of course.
And so and we didn't do it from a standpoint of just, hey, we want to invest to make sure other people don't have it. In many cases, we're investing, it depends on the title, but in some cases, titles won't get made if we don't invest to make.
Would Dead Rising 3 be a fair example of that?
I don't remember in that particular case, so I can't say that was but I would say
that was
the large majority.
That was a Capcom game that was actually published by Microsoft,
right?
So that seemed.
Generally, I would say may not have been made at the same scale, or may not have been made at all.
Right.
And so when you sort of invest, it's just like how movies get made. People go and invest and say, I'm going to go invest to make this, have this movie be made. We go in and say, hey, we're going to be an investor to have this game be made. And sometimes that is the case. In other cases, it's a developer that just says, hey, we want you to help us with the distribution and the marketing of it. We just want to make the game. We don't want to deal with that. So a lot of that, comes into play. So I think people don't understand maybe that side of the, hey, this is actually seed money that's helping something get created in some cases. With that said, it's complex because, we're really excited. We bet on the Crystal Dynamics team.
Our IGN's Xbox One Game of the Year this year.
I thought it was a great choice. Personally, it's probably at the very top of my favorite game of the year as well. They did an incredible job of that title. And so we're excited to have it on our platform. And obviously we paid to make it. We're publishing it. We're going to publish it on our platform. We know eventually it will come to other platforms and gamers everywhere will be able to play it, whether or not they have an Xbox. And that's a good thing too. But that is a little bit of the nature of the business.
So let's rewind a little bit. You've been at Xbox for a long time, since 2000, 16 years.
Yeah.
Before that, you were at Disney.
Yes.
What is pre-Xbox Aaron
so I worked
Greenberg
at Nestle
like?
Food Company, and I worked at Disney Consumer Products. So I worked at before Microsoft recruited me, I was in Burbank, California, the Disney Channel building, if anyone from California kind of knows that area. And I worked in a children's books business, actually.
Interesting.
And I worked for a guy named David Haddad. If you happen to know, he's now the head of Warner Brothers Interactive. So he runs all that business. I haven't talked to him in a long time. So I'd love to reconnect with David. He's a great guy. And I was in the marketing team. And so traditionally, I would say the role I traditionally played was, I usually was in the marketing org, but I was always the data and insights and analytics. So I was doing a lot of modeling or analysis or forecasting. And so in that case, it was like, how many books should we make? What price point should they be? Looking at different types of formats, where are we going to distribute the books? And working with the teams to help build data models and things like that to figure out how we go to market with them. And so I did that for a little over a year, and then Microsoft had called to ask me to come.
What'd you do at Nestle?
At Nestle, I was in operations, and I actually did planning of production. I would plan how much products we would produce in our plants, and then the other thing I did was I would plan our supply chain of how we would ship things. So there was we had to get to the retail stores or their distribution centers, but you could ship by truck, which is super expensive but fast. It's like a simulation game. Okay,
it is.
It's like a train simulator game, and so by the way, I love simulation games, which might explain this. You could do it what they would call by piggyback, where you put the truck on the train. So that was kind of an in-betweener. So it was a little bit cheaper, but not quite as fast as the truck. And then there was rail.
Don't put the cookie dough on that truck.
No, exactly. Yeah, and then the rail was super cheap, but really slow, and they get lost sometimes, and you had the whole idea was
fell off the track.
Exactly. And so that was a lot of optimizing the model so that we were never out of stock at retail, and then we didn't make too much, and it was just this efficiency simulation game basically. And I did that for a number of years. And what I didn't realize was the woman that I worked for there had gone to work at Microsoft, because Microsoft started calling me, and I was like, listen, why am I ever going to move to Seattle? Doesn't it rain all the time there? And so I actually refused to interview at Microsoft. It's funny how this all works out. And this guy I worked with at Disney, and they kept calling and calling, and I was like I was a junior guy. I'm like, there's seriously, I'm not, I appreciate it's very flattering.
Get a little leverage. You get some more money out of your current employer, right?
I don't know. I've never been about the money. So, and then, but this guy was a Harvard MBA guy, really sharp guy, and he's like, listen, it's a free trip to Seattle. Go learn about it. We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I went up there, and I'm not going to lie, I was blown away by Microsoft. Just the quality of the people, how smart they were. I talked to people in finance, I talked to people in marketing, all the different groups, and they were the sharpest person in their field I'd ever met. And then Seattle's a great city. I didn't know. I just saw. What do you see? Watch a Monday Night Football game in Seattle. Just see the rain and someone's throwing fish, right? So I was like, okay, I don't know. It doesn't tell me much about Seattle. And I fell in love with Seattle and the idea to be able to live downtown and I grew up in Southern California. No one really, it's so spread out. So I could walk to things and live in the city. And so, yeah, I just, no family, no friends, knew nobody. And in 1997, on Christmas, actually, I moved to Seattle and went to work at Microsoft. And I was doing forecasting for all of our products in Latin America. Probably a much longer answer than you or your listeners will want to put up with. But
that's we have the time on this show. This is where we get into
learn way more than you ever wanted to know.
Aaron Greenberg deep cut right now.
Or how do you get a job in video games? Maybe this is it. I don't know. I think so much of it is like the opportunity of being at the right place at the right time. So I did that for a couple years, and I was doing forecasting for all of our products in Latin America, and then.
Where does the Xbox come into the picture?
Well, then the team at Xbox reached out and said, hey, we need somebody to come and do analytics and do business insights work for us on Xbox. We're starting this Xbox thing. We don't know like what genres sell where, how much should the games be, like what's the model, like how much is wholesale versus retail?
Microsoft hadn't made a console before. People forget that was an entirely new business. They made at most Windows games.
Yeah, we didn't sell a lot of stuff at retail either. Yeah, so just the whole model,
just hardware in general.
Exactly.
Right?
So I came in and ended up running a small team called the Xbox Business Intelligence Team, and we would do everything from I did the first contracts with NPD. I built this tool called the Mega Pivot, which I was very proud of at the time. Actually still used today, but it's basically all the sales data, really easy to use, really self-service. You could look at by genre, by year, you could look at any title, see easily, anyone could use it to see how much it was selling. That was, no one could ever, used to always have to request custom reports or data. Just made it, and then did a lot of like analysis on, I remember like we did a report on like the Dreamcast launch and like what did we learn from that, or we would do competitive reviews, and then went to Japan a lot, spent a lot of time with folks there learning about the industry, and met with a lot of analysts there. I became, what I did was I committed.
How old were you at this point? When, 2000, you'd been up in Seattle for 3 years, you said. Or, yeah. At what point, is this like,
see, I was...
Were you a well-traveled professional at that point, or was this like still young kid Greenberg, eye-opening?
I was not 30 yet, so I don't remember, mid to late 20s.
Okay,
so, yeah, I would say I was knew enough to like, I think, be capable, but was still like super learning. And for me, it was fascinating to study and learn. For me, it was about almost like getting a degree in video games, because I had to learn everything about the industry.
Were you a gamer before you joined Microsoft?
I was a gamer, and like I bought Dreamcast on day one when it launched, and I wouldn't say...
Peter Moore thanks you, by the way.
Yeah, I was a huge Dreamcast fan. But I wasn't like the super, super, super hardest of the hardcore, but I played a lot of games, and I was a gamer, for sure, and I was fascinated by the business in the industry. And so that kind of led me, I did that for a while. And then.
So did you? You were telling me before that you did prediction models.
Yes.
For the original Xbox launch lineup.
Yes, I did.
Which of course included, you had Halo, of course, Azuric, and Munch's Odyssey.
Correct.
And that.
Did Nightcaster make launch? I think it did. Yeah. So I basically had a model, and I worked with all the guys who now would be on my team today, all the product marketing guys who we do a lot of that too. Yeah. Like how much are we going to sell these things? And
were you pretty dead on with most of your...
We were so far off on everything, everything, way off. And I mean, the number one title we expected was going to be Munch's Odyssey.
Right, because historically the sort of side-scrolling platform character adventure had kind of been the go-to game of any console launch, right?
And then we didn't have any, like even if you remember that E3, we had Halo at that E3. It kind of had an okay E3.
Right, it didn't show super well.
No, it wasn't talk of the show or anything, you know? And so Halo took off when it launched. And there was like, that is the lightning in a bottle. I mean, we all played it, and it was a masterpiece.
You might not be sitting here if not for Halo,
I don't think any of us would be here if it wasn't for Halo.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd probably still be here, Ryan, but...
Well, I mean, OXM wouldn't have existed, which is where I work, so I might not be
here.
Maybe we
both wouldn't be here, but you're right. Halo became that true killer app, platform, defining title.
Really, the last killer app for anything, I mean, I guess Wii Sports counts, right? That's sold about 100 million Wiis, but the age of the killer app seems dead.
I think there's so many big titles now. And we saw, I think Grand Theft Auto was a big one for Sony and PS3, and but I think Nintendo's had it. Nintendo would still their model. They kind of focus on one big release, and they work in that killer app model. And I think Mario Kart 8 did incredible numbers for them, even on the Wii U. So they've got killer apps.
Killer apps at launch seem down. Anyway,
fair enough. Yeah.
Do you have any good stories from the early Xbox days that were either funny at the time or maybe are funny now in hindsight?
I think we did a lot of fun stuff. We just we were learning. We were making a lot of mistakes. It was a small team.
It was like a pirate ship, right? A pirate crew.
We were
just
we may have been part of Microsoft, but we were at the and I'm sure people have heard Peter Moore tell the story. The main campus was this beautiful, beautiful campus.
You were at the end, right?
We were at the end of the freeway next to a gravel pit company. And I would get dings in my windows of my car all the time. So for me, a lot of my memories are just stuff we did with team members. So one of our executives isn't there anymore, used to do this thing, and it was probably a nice idea, but we used to do this employee of the month thing, and we just thought it was like employee of the month. That sounds like something they should do at McDonald's, right? So they had a parking space for employee of the month. So we would race back from lunch every day and try to get into his spot. And so I do remember I made it into his spot one day, and I just went to work, whatever, and then I came back out, and he had literally saran wrapped my entire car. He had gone to Target and bought heavy duty saran wrap, and it took me hours to my car fully. I wish I saw the photo, fully wrapped in saran
just
wrap.
Just cocooned.
Yeah. So we used to do. I would say it was fun. We would do. One of these guys was like Albert Pinello, if you've heard of him. So Albert worked with him, and he was always a car guy. Always was like fixing up cars and stuff. So he'd be at a meeting. We'd see his cars. Sometimes I was involved, a lot of times someone else, but they would take his car.
Don't admit guilt now.
Totally, and they'd move it to somewhere else in the parking lot, and then we just sit in there and just watch him as he goes out, and he's like, thinks his car's been stolen.
That's ice cold,
It's cold, And then, actually, I remember Albert had this list in his office one time. These are just random, you've asked for random stories.
Yes.
And it said, people to kill. And it had a list of people to kill. And from the Adam Sandler movie, God, I forget the name of the movie, but he calls up the guy in the movie, and he's like, hey, I just want to apologize, make amends for what I did. And the guy's like, thank you. Done it, hangs up, and then he crosses his name off the list of people. You never know, like the high school guy you went to high school with is like a serial killer. So Albert had this list. Well, he interviewed a candidate, or something happened, and HR got wind of this.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I got a call from HR, and they go, listen, we know you work with Albert Pinello, and there's this people to kill list, and then they go, we've noticed your names on it. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, but it's like, you've seen the movie, right? And they're like, oh, are you sure? And they actually made him take it down. Jeez. So there's been some fun, like a lot of stuff like that. But I would say, the other stuff was just growing up in the business, like getting to present to Robbie Bach every month. We do like a business overview, or working with Jay Allard in the early days of
Where did he go? Jay disappeared.
Oh, Jay was one of the greats.
He invented the hoodie over the sport jacket.
Sitting down on the stage.
Yeah,
the hoodie. I remember that. Yeah. No, I think he was. God, that guy was smart.
I would love to interview him, Jay Allard, if you're watching this.
Jay, you should get on here.
Come on in.
That's a show I'd like to watch.
I won't bite.
Yeah. So, I think, but a lot of the, I remember the first PowerPoint deck on what Xbox Live should be, and sitting in the room, and it's like, hey, well, we want to have this online service, and we knew we had the hard drive and the Ethernet port, but it was like, we want people to be able to chat in the living room, and we want to be able to, and then what game should we do? And,
right.
And so for me, it was fun to be part of that, and we did a lot of trial and error, but we were small, we were able to make a lot of stuff happen quickly. So it was a really fun time, and a lot of great memories. And there's still a few, kind of monks from back in the day that are still around. It's great to be able to catch up with them as well.
What's an average day for? I always like to ask this of people because I think people that work in the making and creating of video games, and you're in the trenches at Microsoft Xbox campus.
Yeah.
Walk me through an average day for you, because what does that look like? I think most people, I don't know. I have no idea what sort of.
I would say it's probably a lot less glamorous than what people think. So I think whenever I tell anyone I work on Xbox, or they're like, oh, that must be an easy. You sit in your office and play a video game. You probably
we get that all the time. Yeah.
And or
I wish that were the case.
Yeah. Everyone's families or everyone's kids are always like, oh my God, I wish I had. I'm like, eh. But so my day, every day, two words. I would say email.
Yep.
And meetings, and that summarizes
Sounds familiar.
yes. So I will start my day usually at 8 and then go to usually about 6.
Wow.
Between 8 and 6, I'm in meetings almost every minute of the
What
full
meeting
day.
are you missing right now for this?
Well, today we're moving offices, so that's actually how I'm able to make this whole thing happen. So I'm happy to be here, but I will do 8 to 6, and in some cases, so to give a little profile of what that would be.
Yeah.
So full, and if I'm lucky, I can go get lunch. If I'm lucky, it's that
Really?
crazy. Yeah, and I do that 5 days a week, and then I go home and have dinner and and then I'll go and do email again late at night.
Oh,
so
no.
it's a hard grind. I mean, but that's why you have to love what you do. And so, and I work with like my team. They are like family. I mean, we have an incredible team of people. Great guy that leads our Halo marketing stuff, or we have great folks that run our third-party marketing with our third-party partners, and so we just have an incredible, really, really close team, and so we work really well together. We have a lot of fun at work, but we work hard. And so I'd say a normal day, I'll have meetings that I'm in. Sometimes we'll be presenting to Phil and our leadership team, and we'll be taking them through a recommendation, or we'll be giving them an update on a title, and we may want to get maybe more investment in the title. We may want to move the title date. Right. We may want to confirm, like, here's our go-to-market plan, whatever that may be. There'll be other times where I'll be meeting with my directs. I meet with them every week, and we go through kind of all the key things that are happening in the business, get a lot of their feedback on key decisions we're making. We do a lot, we review our budgets. There's a lot of administrative stuff that's probably super boring. I do one-on-one meetings with all my directs, and then and so I do 30 minutes to an hour with them. So we sync on, hey, so there's a guy named Guy Welsh who works for me, and he manages Gears and Forza, and so he'll give me an update. He spent the week out at Turn 10, and here's what's happening with their project, or he actually this week he's been up at Coalition, and I'll get a deep dive from him, and he'll say, hey, so here's how we're thinking about this next beat or this thing.
Yeah, beta's coming up.
Totally. And so, we go through a lot of that, and then we'll strategize. What should we do? What are the options? What are the challenges? Where's the studio at on stuff? And then Phil will send us random mails saying, I think we should do this or that. And, and we're like, that's an interesting idea. So it's just a lot of that kind of stuff. And then within marketing, like I'm games, but there's also someone else that does Xbox Live and leads that team. There's someone else that does our hardware, which does like hardware and the bundles and all that. And then we sit and do a lot of work together across team as well. So, and that just between all that and all the other reviews, it ends up, we end up in meetings all day, every day.
So when recently Scalebound was moved to 2017, was moved to next year.
Yeah.
So were you a part of that, or is that one thing, or was it sometimes a marketing decision and sometimes a development decision?
It's almost always a team decision.
Right.
So in this case, there's someone on my team that has been dedicated to Scalebound, working with Kamiya-san and team. Works for one of my directs, and then they've been working with our publishing team and with Kamiya-san and his team very closely. And as we're sort of looking at the lineup for this year and kind of where they are and how their aspirations, that game is super aspirational, and we want to be able to give them enough time and resources to do that. And so that's one, like from a production standpoint, it makes sense to have the time. But on the other side, from a marketing standpoint, who would want to launch new IP in the middle of holiday with all the other games you already have?
Yeah.
So strategically, we think it's, give it time to breathe. Let's make sure we can give it enough space so that people, one, first and foremost, always make sure the game's great and make sure the quality is there. Two is, when is the right time to launch it and support it? And we know the game will be great, and so it'll be coming in in early 2017, and I think that will set it up for better success. Anyway.
Do you guys think a lot about the calendar and trying to have some sort of balance? Because 2015, you guys had a killer lineup. I mean, everything was really good. To the point you just said. I mean, Rare Replay, Gears Ultimate, onto Forza, and then Halo and Tomb Raider. They were all really good.
Totally.
But I think the criticism of the Xbox lineup would be that it was pretty, I guess, top heavy, bottom heavy, depending on how you want to look at the year. We didn't get a lot of Xbox exclusive, first party stuff in the earlier part of the year.
Yeah.
So obviously sometimes you probably just can't control that because development is what it is, and you've got games that are going to be ready when they're ready. But does your team try to really balance out the year as best as possible?
We do. We spend a lot of time thinking about the all-up portfolio, and we work with each of the studio leads. There's also a studio's business team that we work with. on the business side and financial side that's building, the P&L and all the models across all the studios teams. And so we'll work very collaboratively with them to look at that portfolio and what do we do. I mean, you're right. I mean, on one hand, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of great games. And so like if we didn't have a lot of great games, then people would be like, hey, how come we don't have enough great games? So it's kind of a good problem to have.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what we did was we said, historically we haven't launched any games in August. So for example, we made the recommendation, let's put Rare Replay out in August. Let's put Gears of War out in August. Let's try to move some stuff earlier. And it was a big bet to do that.
Yeah, we've seen success in years past. I mean, the early Xbox 360 days, Dead Rising was an August game. The first BioShock was an August game.
Yeah, and we look at like usage, and we're looking at like so we don't see a lot of new games launch at that time period, but we looked at some tells that were like, hey, we see a lot of live usage. We know people are on vacation, they may be out of school.
Yeah.
So we know like we have an engaged audience. And then two, with both those cases, these were titles that we weren't planning on putting big, multi-million-dollar TV campaigns behind. So we knew we had to do it that we call our owned and earned channels, where we do it through our dashboard, or we, really will leverage a lot and rely a lot on, folks like IGN to feature it and reviews to carry the weight. And so how do we kind of promote it through those channels in a way that can drive, awareness and buzz and purchase intent, ideally. And it worked really well. I mean, but both products were great too. But it allowed them to be great products, have their moment in the sun, let people become aware of them, try them, and word of mouth and kind of drive that. And they both did very, very well for us. And I think being in that window helped them a lot. I mean, Rare Replay trying to launch in November would have been disastrous.
Right.
And so, and with that said, you're right. I mean, this holiday we had 7 AAA titles launch in that 4-week period. And Fallout was one of our third-party deal titles. So we were doing all the co-marketing with them. And when we had Battlefront, we had EA Access a week early on. So we were there. Just eventually, the pizza is so big, and you're just slicing it in more slices, and you're not really growing the pie.
Right.
And so, it just becomes hard. And I think we've learned, and I think you'll see as we're looking at this year, you'll see, I think what we've done with Scalebound is a good example of that. Of hey, we don't need that title on holiday, and let's give them enough time to realize their full ambitions as well.
Do you keep much of an eye on the competition? Do you have a Wii U at home, PS4 at home? Do you keep tabs on what those guys are up to?
I do. Yeah, I have a PS4, I have a Wii U, and I have Steam on my Win 10 PC. So
I had to throw the plug in there, Windows 10.
Brought to you by, they pay my bills. Actually, I'll be honest, I love Windows 10. I mean, I've been very happy with the OS, and been thrilled with that. But I do. I mean, the challenge I have is just how much free time do I have to play games,
right?
And I want to play our games, and so I played Halo all the way through before it came out, and just to be able to sort of. For big titles in particular, I want to be able to dedicate the time. And then I play a lot of the games earlier as we're going through the cycles, or we're trying to kind of, give them feedback, or even try to anticipate what the response might be like.
Sure.
And dial up or down different marketing levers or programs as well. So I don't get as much time to play that, but I have good friends that work at Sony, and we do, they always send me their titles, and I send them our titles. We have a nice friendly exchange. And
you mean it's not a bitter console war where it's a blood feud and only one company can survive and someone has to die?
It is not as the world appears on Twitter. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, I think, the way I would describe it is it's like a football game. It's like we've got 2 teams on the field, and we're competing.
Poor Nintendo. Sorry, Nintendo.
Well, sometimes it's them. There's more than 2 teams in the league, okay? Wow.
All right, you saved it.
Fair
saved
enough.
It with the,
See, there we go.
There you
See,
go.
I've got some marketing instincts. So, but, we play and compete, but after the game, we shake hands. We know these people, at the Game Awards this fall, I spent over an hour hanging out and talking with Sean Layton, and, runs PlayStation of America. And so, I think of the Americas, don't want to undersell his title, but or Eric Limpel, who works for him and runs marketing and the PlayStation Network. I mean, or Adam on the third-party side. So, I know all these people, and so after the game, we all shake hands and we're like, listen. The thing is, it's like for football. It's like we all love football. We all love what we do.
Yeah, you want to win, but at the end of the day, you're not looking to hurt anybody.
Exactly, exactly. And so, I think we all feel really fortunate that we get to work in this industry, and while we compete, there's an admiration, and it's what, it's how we connect and what makes this industry so special and unique. And there's no hatred or any of that. And I think what you see, unfortunately, sometimes online is not really reflective of really, we're human people. We're often friends. We'll go out to dinners and and spend time together. Now, strategically, we may not, we obviously don't share secrets,
right?
But and we don't share playbooks to use the same thing, and then, but I'm sure a lot of football players do the same thing.
Of course.
And we know our fans root for us, and and people sometimes give me a hard time when I go out and kind of trumpet stuff we're doing or whatever. But it's like, yeah, I root for the home team, like
who pays your bills.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, yes, I want us to sell more, do better, whatever, and so and that also, as the marketing guy, that's my job also, so. But at the end of the day, it's, I think, a lot closer, friendlier industry than probably what people really think.
You mentioned in the middle of that answer that you'll often sit down and play things in the middle of development. Maybe you guys, of course, Microsoft, you guys have builds coming in for various updates and just progress along the way, whether it's alpha or whatever it is. What are you playing lately?
Early?
Yeah. What early stuff? What's I mean, you're not giving away any secrets because you're playing things
I'll
as
pick
they're
something.
in development.
Well, first, I think what's interesting is that through that cycle of development, there's a lot of stages and gates that people don't realize. But in the early concept phase, it's often there's nothing to play.
Right.
And then there's like a pre-prototype phase.
First playable.
Totally, yeah. And then there's a prototype, but then you get into like full production, which is where like the millions and millions of dollars usually get spent. And so, well, I will tell you what I've played that I thought from a prototype or kind of maybe prototype leading into production now. This was last year, but actually I played a number of times over the last year. Is Sea of Thieves. And
that's really high on my personal list.
Okay.
If anybody listens to Podcast Unlocked, if that game, I'll let you finish in a second, but I just got it's,
I said the word.
I know you set me up, but no, there's something about the sunny vibe of that game, the idea of a connected pirate game. Like if Rare can actually deliver a full game that lives up to the slice shown in that trailer, I will be very happy. So yes, tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the vision they have of this game and what they are creating, this kind of shared world experience, and I think the uniqueness of Rare, and what we've played was, was a visually not stunning thing,
right.
But
that comes later.
Totally, exactly, and and the scale and all the stuff may not be there, but the core mechanic of, hey, it's me and a bunch of people on a ship, and we're doing a bunch of stuff, and we're going to an island, and then we're and then what happens when I die, and then how do we all work together? Who's raising the sail? Who's we've had so much fun. And then it's just funny to see so we were playing with like Kudo and Phil, and so Kudo just jumps in the water and jumps on another ship. He goes AWOL, right? And then
I know that sounds like something he would totally do.
And then he finally goes AWOL, and then they don't see him for a while. Then he comes back around and he starts blasting cannons at their ship. So but then on the other hand, there's this guy named Hanno Lemke who runs our European studios now, and Rare reports into him, and he's. Well, I'll be careful with it. He's Canadian. He's like super high integrity guy. So I get on the ship, and by the way, I'm just like, oh my God, because we've been in meetings all day. And I'm finally playing games.
Right.
So I run around and I start hitting him with like a fish, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, there's water down below. We gotta raise the anchor. We gotta set he's like, so he starts putting me to work, and I'm like, shit.
And you're beating him with a fish.
I am, because I'm just like, why not, So. I don't know, and so it's just fun, just an example of a kind of a full, it's kind of an earlier prototype of the game, but so much fun. And when you see those types of experiences, and we're all playing, and we did this multiple times throughout the year, and we saw it progress. And all of us had these great stories, and then what Craig Duncan and his team did was they videotaped us all playing, and they gave us all like pirate names, and I'm Aaron Greenberg, so and then he anyway. So then I was like, okay, I can't tell all the story, but anyway, but with the magic of it, and then we're talking about it, and like that's when you're like, there's a there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, you've been doing this a long time now, 16 years on Xbox.
Yeah.
Are you at the point where you can tell when something's going to be special or really good?
I think I feel like I haven't mastered it. I would say I have a lot more experience and have gone through a lot more cycles than others have, but I still I want to hear what other people on my team think. I want to hear, Phil is genius at this. I mean, he truly has that magical ability to
he's
see
playing
stuff.
every day. We see his Destiny profile.
Oh my God. When you guys talk about how many hours, I don't know how many hours is he at on Destiny
Hundreds.
now? Yeah, it's embarrassing. And the funny thing is he would, he's always inviting me to play Destiny, with him. This is this is before Halo came out and all this.
Yeah.
And so, and then, sometimes my wife would be home watching TV and she'd be like, Aaron, I got 12 invites from Phil to play with you, And so I'm like, okay, I'll send him a note, but he's super always inviting and social, which I love, but the dude he probably plays more games than anyone else in the building. Of course, we're in multiple buildings now.
That's
but
good.
Anyway, it's great.
He needs to know, yeah.
That's what you want in the head of your business.
Yes.
And so, so I think we're learning, and I think the thing I think we do have a good sense of is when it comes to how we market titles, how we launch titles, how we bring them to market, we have a very good sense of what works and what doesn't. And some of it may be common sense, but titles and the types of games and how they're getting made are changing, how we're launching games are changing. We have more games as a service titles now than we did before. We have a lot more people buying stuff digitally. And so we have a lot more, people adding on a lot more content and doing rec packs, and Halo's a new thing. Yeah. And so, and then in Halo now we're doing service, it's running as a full massive updates. The stuff we just put out this week, and all the new stuff that's coming, new weapons, new maps, etc. And we're doing that every month.
So when you're playing something like a Sea of Thieves super early in development, does that help you? Will you latch on to a really cool mechanic? Because you said the mechanics are there, just the rest of it's not.
Correct.
Does that help you latch on to a really cool mechanic to go, okay, this is how we can sort of help sell this game and position this game is, maybe
Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, will something like that work its way in later, where maybe in 6 months from now or a year from now, whatever it is, if at the very end of a Sea of Thieves trailer, it's the Xbox logo screen, and then there's a stinger at the end of a character beating another character with a fish. Does stuff like that kind of, when you get the early access and you're playing early builds, does that help sort of drive the direction of where you think you can take the marketing of the game?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important to us because we are the only team really that is, from the marketing side, we have a huge organization of people that do different things in marketing, but we're the only people that are playing the game, know the whole vision of what they want to create. And so then what we'll do is we did the naming. So we go off and work on naming. How could we possibly name a product without even knowing what it is, right? And so it's just, it makes sense, but that informs that.
Yeah.
We're doing what we call the Viz ID, visual ID. So we're right now, what is visual ID, the key visual ID, which a lot of people think
basically
is
the box art,
box
right?
art, right? Exactly. But it also ends up being, all the same stuff you see in retail or on digital assets or whatever it is. And so what is that iconic thing? And, and with Pirates, you could imagine go all different kinds of directions. And so knowing what the game is and the style of the game, the tone of the game, the color palette of the game, and we work collaboratively with Rare and that team on it, absolutely informs those things. And so that is a super fun part of what we get to do.
So 3 Xboxes under your belt at this point in your Microsoft career. Yeah. What would you say is the proudest moment of your career so far at Microsoft?
Wow, I would say there's a couple things that come to mind, and it might be a little different what you would expect, but I was doing marketing for Xbox Live after I did the business intelligence stuff. I went and then did Xbox Live for a while. And so I got to market the new Xbox One experience and really also did the marketing and PR. So I got to really, when we did the unveil of that at E3 that year, and got to work with John Shepard at the time to unveil that. And the other part you may not remember was we were, I think, one of, not the very first box ever to bring Netflix to the TV.
That's right. Yeah,
and
that was big for you.
That was, to me, because so much of this is about we work super hard, but how do you leave, like, I always tell people on my team, like, you want to leave your fingerprints on this industry. You want to be able to say, hey, I helped contribute to this thing, or I had this idea, or I helped make this thing happen. And for me, like, it may not be a gaming thing, but like, I remember going down and we had dinner with Reed Hastings, and we were talking with them and his team and about, Netflix at that time was only mail order discs.
Right.
And everyone loved them, and it was, did you have 1, 2, or 3 discs, right? And and they were this kind of vision of what they wanted to do digitally, and we worked with them early on, and to be able to work with them and to announce that and what that did and how that kind of took off. At the same time, reinventing, it was also the first time that we can remember where we actually took a consumer electronics product and relaunched it entirely through software, and now it's like every system gets updated and all that, but those things hadn't been done before.
That's true.
So for me, that was a highlight, just getting to, work with the team that was envisioning it, helping drive a lot of the key decisions, helping market and, launch that stuff. I thought that was a pretty big highlight. I think the other thing for me is I always get really excited about when you can do a lot with like a little, and so I worked on Xbox Live Arcade in the early days and launched that program, and got to get to market and promote a lot of those titles in the early days. And we had Pac-Man on the service, and one of the things we had done, we were sitting in the room and I was thinking about Pac-Man, and I was like, the great thing about Pac-Man is you have that one maze, but like no one's ever created a different maze, and there's only been one. And so I went to Japan and met with Toru Iwatani, the original creator of Pac-Man, and the folks at Namco, and said, listen, we want to do, this is before esports, before anything. I said, we want to do a Pac-Man World Championships. We want to do it on Xbox Live, and we want to take all these players from around the world. We want to allow them to play the current Pac-Man that we're bringing to Xbox Live Arcade, but then we want to surprise them and create the first brand new maze ever for Pac-Man. Such an iconic thing.
Yeah.
And they agreed. And so it was like, oh my God, they agreed. Now, by the way, I had no marketing, I had no budget, I had nothing. So like they agreed. Now they're going to make a new product. And of course, we're going to sell it. So there's not, but for them to prioritize this or whatever else they're doing was kind of cool. Then 2, we had to do this whole, I would say, pre-esports World Championships. We had people from all over the world playing, and we did leaderboards through live and whatever. And we got Quiznos to sponsor it, and they paid for the entire thing because we literally had no money. So we did this in Times Square. We had Billy Mitchell. Remember Billy Mitchell?
Oh, sure. It's
from
King of
Kong. Exactly.
Yes, the one-time record holder in Donkey Kong.
Exactly. So Billy Mitchell was the top-rated Pac-Man scorer on it. By the way, he bought a 360 to play for this when he heard about it. He beat all other scores, top of the leaderboard on Pac-Man, and represented USA. Then there was a guy, Dwayne.
Did he have the American flag tie?
He had the American flag tie, and it was, by the way, class act guy, great guy. Always looks the same. I don't know if he aged or not. He is like, and he owned like a hot sauce company in Florida. It was just, it was like, but it's video game history. And here I am, like, we just had this idea on a whiteboard in a room.
Right.
And I flew to Japan, and then we had this, now we got the creator of Pac-Man making a new map for us, like, holy cow. And then we've got these great legends, and then like, I forget his name, there's a guy from Canada who was the number 1 player in Canada, and those two had always gone back and forth over the years. And we had guys from Mexico, we had someone from Japan, people all over the world, they came in, they played, and the guy from Mexico actually won. And Carlos, I forget your last name now, it's been a few years. But we had, it was like USA Today, it was the New York Times, we had the New York TV stations, like the weather reporters were live from the Pac-Man World Championships. Namco brought all this historical stuff from the history of Pac-Man no one had ever seen out of their vaults. And so for me, like that would be another highlight. It's just something super cool that we created. The game was really fun. And then they play, so that of course, then we surprised them that night and said, hey, here's the creator of Pac-Man, and by the way, he's brought a whole new Pac-Man, and that's what you're going to play tomorrow. And we're going to pick the world champion based off, and he called it Pac-Man Championship Edition. Yeah. So and now I think it's like on every mobile phone and everywhere. And so it's kind of fun to like we as marketers we don't usually get to create games, but that was one where we got to go create something pretty special.
So speaking of iconic moments, take me back to E3 2006.
Okay.
The 360's out.
Yes.
What was it like for you and your team, particularly as in the marketing side, when you're Xbox 360 is off to a good start.
Yeah.
You practically couldn't find one up through February. It was
Yeah.
really hard to get.
Yeah.
When Sony comes out with the whole $599 US thing, what is the reaction, like privately behind closed doors from you guys? Are you just
I think
like,
we were surprised. I mean, I think we don't, and even this. I mean, people think like we all know whatever. It's like, why did you do this when they're doing this? It's like, well, they didn't know what we're doing. We didn't know what they're doing. Like, like we may know or assume some things, but just like predicting what anybody's going to do. It's it's unpredictable, and so we did not expect that. In many ways, I think it just validated the value that we had in 360. I think we became probably more confident and reaffirmed that what we had and the kind of where we had gone to market with that, we were in a good place. But they had invested in a different way, and made a big bet, and we still knew they were a very, very formidable competitor and had been very successful. Obviously, the PS2 generation, and we knew they were going to have a lot of great content, a lot of great partners, and they were. But yeah, it was a surprise to us.
Well, then conversely, I have to ask you about E3 2013 when you
Sure.
guys were kind of on the other side of the coin with it, where you had your conference in the morning.
Yeah.
At the very end of the conference, it's Xbox One will be available this November for $499.
Yeah.
And then that night, Sony does the $399.
Yeah.
How's that go for you guys?
Very similar reaction. We did not expect that.
Yeah.
I thought they had a great, showing, and I think I think they did a great job with that E3. And back to the football analogy.
Yeah.
That game, they were the victors on that day. And so, at the end of the day, you look back at the film, if you will, and you go
Monday morning.
You go, man, they ran some great plays, and kudos to them. And but the great thing is, I think what we've done over the last couple of years, I think what Phil Spencer's done coming in and leading Xbox, I'm really, really proud, and particularly the last couple of years of what the team's been able to achieve. And we've faced adversity in all different kinds of ways each generation. With the OG original original Xbox, we were new to the market. We were much later than after PlayStation had launched, and
the GameCube was formidable.
Totally, absolutely. It was the Sony Nintendo battle, and so with some Dreamcast in there too, and so and we were like the new guys, way outsized, and didn't have the content library they had, but we were innovating and doing different things with Xbox Live and other things. With 360, of course, the red ring was a challenge. Adversity we faced, and I think with Xbox One, similar things with what happened leading up to launch and all that. But it's like, okay, so we're all going to face adversity. Things are not going to happen the way you expect them. But then, like, what do you do about it?
Yeah.
And so that's where I think I get the most admiration for our team. And when you're challenged, when you're when chips are down, when you're like, when you've lost connection with your fans, when you've just been off strategy, what do you do? And I think what Phil has done, and with the rest of our leadership team, we have an incredible group of folks to really take. We're all gamers. We love games. We've been around this business for so long, and say, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to focus on. And a lot of us felt that way maybe along the way, but now we're driving it and we're in charge, and so that felt great. And so I think being able to refocus on games, and I think the team in a very short time now, if you look at our games lineup this holiday, I think we feel like we delivered probably one of the best lineups in the industry, and we talked about it. We both believed it was the greatest games lineup in Xbox history, and to be able to have all those 80 plus Metacritic titles, to have those titles largely all come out on time, to come out at high quality, to see fans' reactions, just to we set some incredible records. Our exclusive games this holiday, well, basically say this half of the year, sold 66% more units than we did last year. At the same time, we sold more consoles. We've sold more consoles for Xbox One than we have for Xbox 360 every single month. So we're turning ahead. By the way, PS4 sold a lot more than PS3. So the whole industry is growing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good for us. It's good for everybody. We're seeing our publishers are selling more games, and so. But I'd say I'm particularly proud with where we've innovated. We've delivered over 200 new features to the console in 1 year. We delivered backward compatibility, which was a huge.
The Elite is probably my favorite
new
new
toy.
toy
Controller.
at home.
Yeah. I just think about the new Xbox One experience. In addition to the titles, some great innovation with Windows 10 streaming and the Xbox app there. I just think the team has done. I feel like the team's done more than a year's work in a year, and so that's kind of we want to keep doing that. I think we're very passionate about that. I think we're hungry. We know that we have to work a little harder and be better than the other guy in some cases, and I think the team has shown up really well.
Do you think that I've predicted on our Xbox show Unlocked that inevitably at some point, whether it's this year or not, that there will be a slimmed down form factor of Xbox One. At least there certainly, we got a couple of them during the 360 generation. When that point comes, do you think, because you mentioned one of the proudest moments for you was you just said you felt like the original NXE with the 360 was sort of, and then with Netflix and Kinect was sort of almost a relaunch of the 360. Do you feel like as a marketing team and a marketing lead that a slim machine at some point would almost serve as a catalyst to relaunch the Xbox One, because you said backwards compatibility, the new dashboard, the lower price of the console. There's the games lineups is incredible. Do you sit back and kind of look at those kind of things and go, oh, maybe I can kind of take all of this and channel it into a big, take all these little pieces and combine them into one big push?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think first, you predicted last year that we were going to do that. So
I was a little early.
I'm
still a little early, I guess.
I will stick with the no comment on when any of these may or may not happen.
Sure.
But I think like the ability to be able to go and market a complete offering in a way, whether you call it a relaunch or not. I think we tried to do that this holiday with our games lineup and with what we did with backward compatibility, what we did with the new Xbox One experience. And I think we saw a lot of we had a really, really strong holiday as a result of that. And so, for us, we're going to continue to focus on building great games. We're going to continue to focus on putting our fans first. We're going to continue to focus on making Xbox Live the best online service and community. We're going to continue to innovate. We want more people to play our games, more people to experience these things. And so that's kind of our focus. And what do we do with other things? And, all that, remains to be seen. And, some things may happen, some things may not. And we'll talk about, them at the right time.
So you were kind enough to walk me through the meeting-filled day, average day for you.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious. So how is success measured for you?
Sure.
Like as when Aaron Greenberg sits down and gets his performance review.
Right.
Maybe we don't have to get that granular, but yeah, like what's sort of success for you at the end of the day?
Well, so every month we look at our business results. For us, we do obviously have projections of what we want to achieve, and it's not all just about units and sales. That is
right.
part of it. We look.
Well, that's what I'm curious of.
Look at
like
engagement.
Yeah,
we do. We look a lot at engagement as a key. From a business, we actually look at engagement as our top metric. And so, because the problem is that so if you just go and sell something, but your customer doesn't come back, how often do they come back and play it? Because that is really the determinant of the value they see in that game. So the number of times each person, we launch a game, how many times do they come back and play that game? And it can vary based on the type of game or the release of the game. And so the level of engagement, also the most likely they're going to want to go buy that game or a similar game if it comes out next year or the next version of that, is dependent on how much value we got out of it. You look at something like Minecraft and try to think about how many game sessions, how many times people have gone back and played it's astronomical, and so, but you think
that's why you paid a couple $1 billion for it.
But think about from a fan engagement standpoint, like if you paid $20 for a title, you may, and how many times have you, like the value of that you're getting
thousands of hours.
Exactly, it's unbelievable off the value chart. So that does matter a lot. But you're right. Ultimately, that can sometimes be the hard part of the role. Is we don't always make every number or exceed every target. We can be very aggressive in targets sometimes, and generally they do come to me for those. But we look at the data and the insights, and we try to learn from all those things, and what we have done differently, what's surprising us, what's overperforming, what's underperforming, and the key thing is just to take the feedback, and my boss always tells me that feedback is a gift. But he gives me great feedback.
That sounds like something a boss would say.
It does, doesn't it? He's very like football coach like, and so I get the locker room thing. But it's great because he'll give me all this kind of feedback, and to me it pushes me, it challenges me, and it makes me a better person. And some people talk about, there's different analogies. Some people talk about like when the military goes on a mission, at the end of the mission they always do a debrief, and they always no, debrief is before the mission. They always do after the mission, they do a recap, and they go and they analyze what happened.
Like postmortem, basically.
Postmortem, there you go. We do that on all our stuff. And that's super helpful to just how do you learn? Because you're not going to get everything right. You're going to take risks. You're going to try things you haven't done. Or there may be things in the market, like maybe the market is down this year, or maybe we had 7 titles launch in 4 weeks. And so there's unexpected things. But how did you compare versus last year? How'd you compare versus the market? How'd you compare versus the competition? A lot of different ways to measure it, and we use all those factors to sort of define success, for sure.
So, what's the biggest misconception people have about Microsoft? Do you think, having worked there for a very long time?
It's hard for me to answer that because I have been there so long that I, am not an outsider. But I would say from what I've heard from, I think people think of Microsoft. It was interesting. What I did one day was I went and became an employee at the Microsoft store. And they had this program. They asked us if we wanted to volunteer to do it. And they said, listen, if you want to go, they had to go through a little bit of employee training.
Yep.
And I basically became a store employee.
Yep.
And I worked there for a whole day. And it was fascinating what happened. So first off, the doors open, and there's this 80-year-old guy carrying in his desktop computer into the Microsoft, and I'm like,
uh-oh.
And I'm asking the manager, I'm like, what's going on here? He's like, oh yeah, he's like, not even, I'm like, we're like the Microsoft store, if you want to get an Xbox or a Microsoft Band or a Surface, I'm like, this guy looks like he's coming, oh yeah, no,
he needs tech support.
He needs tech support.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people think of us, as very tech-oriented, very kind of PC, kind of the heritage of the company. I would say that, and I think there's a perception that Microsoft is a little bit of, you have to drink the Kool-Aid and use all our own stuff and all that. But I think it's and some of that may be true. Historically, it's maybe true. I would say Microsoft today is very different than Microsoft that I kind of grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
I think today it is really, what Satya, his vision and how he's changed the culture in the company, how he's changed us to be much of a mobile-first, cloud-first company. You see that, Office used to be all about Office to drive a computer on every desktop.
Sell that $600 Office every year or two.
Right, and now we have student versions. We have Office is on your iPhone, your iPad. It's everywhere, and they've got OneNote on the Apple Watch, So it's just so I think that, and by the it's about putting the customer first. And if you put the customer first, if they love your products and they want to use your products no matter where they are, no matter what device they're on, almost always if you focus and make your decisions based on them, you're going to make the right decision. And so it's been refreshing, and I think, the company, people feel like, we're on an upswing, and of course stock's going up, and all the smart people are saying that too. But and we're seeing a lot of growth in our business. Bing's doing great, and the online business is doing great. The cloud business is doing great. Office is doing great, but they're doing great because they've reinvented themselves. And I think, for us, it's the same challenge we have in gaming. Is okay, so in a mobile-first, cloud-first world, in a world where we want as many people to play our games, to be connected to our service, how do we, expand our aspirations even beyond just about being a console and trying to win the console wars? And so, I think, who knows how that all plays out, but I think it presents a lot of opportunity for us, and I think we're nowhere near done in our vision and how we want to drive our business and impact the games industry.
What's been the most exciting product launch for you in your career at Microsoft? Because for me as a gamer, I don't think I've ever seen anything, experienced anything, or will ever again experience anything like the Halo 2 launch.
Yeah.
That was just like a cultural earthquake.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky to be near the epicenter of it, working for an Xbox magazine. But what for you was the most exciting product launch, whether a console or a game or?
Probably Xbox Live. I worked on Xbox Live in the early days, and we were launching it and post-launch, and when we did the beta with Revolt, and I'm trying to remember the other games that were in there. But for me, like
MotoGP, right?
MotoGP, that's right. And Halo 2 was the first Halo that had Xbox Live, and that was what took it from LAN parties to allowing everyone to play. So it's funny you mentioned that. And I think iconically, the magical moment I remember was putting on the headset and playing Mech Assault. And
great game.
And going, I've never experienced something like this before. Like truly, it was like, I felt like I was in a magical world. Being in the Willy Wonka chocolate factory equivalent as a gamer, I felt that way. And
voice chat was not ubiquitous at all at that point.
No, not at all. And people were doing multiplayer PC games largely without a lot of voice chat. People thought we were crazy to try to get people to talk in the living room. There's other people. How is this going to work? And so, but I remember playing Mech Assault and playing with people and just blowing stuff up, and just remember how much fun it was. And the game was fun, but the magic was that there was an experience created socially with me and my friends as if we were sitting on the couch together, but we weren't. And I had never had that experience before. And so that was truly magical. And then to start to think about that, then I remember we played Ghost Recon and we played a bunch of other early titles, and just seeing that develop and evolve, and then putting that tech and that service in the hands of game developers. And that, Halo 2 and the Bungie team at that time had a huge influence on Xbox Live. We added a lot of features, did a lot of stuff for them.
And Max Hoberman was heavily involved in the whole party system.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Max is a great guy, still does a lot of work with us. So, and so being able to be part of those kind of early pioneering days where you're really creating something from nothing and then building on it and having more people get engaged. And I remember we were so excited when our Xbox Live members in a year doubled from 2 million to 4 million members, and it was like, and even the first year when we hit 1 million, we never expected to hit 1 million. I think we were supposed to hit a few 100,000. And so Alive just took off and skyrocketed. And so that was incredible. To me, that's probably the launch highlight that I remember the most. A little bit of an extended window, but that was super special. And then now to see where it is and to look back at that as like the foundation. And that was before Twitter, before Facebook, before all the social medias. So it was really cool to be part of that.
If you could go back in time and change anything about either a marketing launch, a product launch, anything that maybe you've been involved in, if there's one where we could go back and go, I wish I'd done that one a little differently. Are there any of those?
That's a great question. That's a hard one because philosophically, two things I'll tell you about. I'm a glass half full guy. First, two, I love everybody. So I just, and sometimes it's a bad thing. It gets me in trouble on Twitter, by the way, because I'm like nice to everyone. I love everyone, and then people will be like, hey, have you actually seen like that person that like you wrote back and like they're like this horrible person? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, so, but even with launches and things or other programs we work on, I try to learn from them, and I don't believe like, hey, we should admit where we made mistakes or we made miscalculations, but for me, it's a learning opportunity versus I really wish I'd done something differently. Right. I think I'd go back and maybe look at some of the early titles that we brought to market and go, probably shouldn't have launched those. There's a few in there. I probably shouldn't name names. Just I like to be I love to share them as much as I can.
You love everybody.
Exactly. I don't want to kick
People
any of the
work
children.
hard on those.
We don't want to kick any of the children in the teeth, but there were some pretty bad games in there, and there were some incredible fun ones. And we talked about a few, or Midtown Madness and Crimson Skies.
Sure.
And, a lot of those I loved playing. I know Phil was a big fan of Voodoo Events, which is a great title. I saw you have the Voodoo Event stall on your on your desk. So, but there's some other ones I didn't mention in that list that maybe we probably shouldn't have made. But with all that said, we learned a lot from the ones that weren't successful as well.
So Xbox One, as we start to wind down here, we've sort of touched on it as a pretty killer lineup for 2016 on paper. We obviously hope that they're going to turn out as well as we want them to. Whether it's Quantum Break, sort of the next one up in April. Gears 4, Sea of Thieves, ReCore, Halo Wars 2, Crackdown 3, Inside, Cuphead, etc. That's not even all of them. So so which You like everybody, but which of those kids is going to the best school? Which one is Aaron Greenberg most excited about?
Ryan McCaffrey
Put
with
me
the
on
trick
the spot.
questions.
I'm going to get you in
Pick your
trouble.
favorite child and then pick the one you don't like the most.
I'm going to get you in trouble with all the other developers.
It's pretty easy for me because right now the title I'm most excited about is Quantum Break. It is 100% the type of game I love to play. Tomb Raider was probably my favorite game of last year, and I played a lot of Halo. I loved.
Hear that 343?
Look and see.
Turn 10.
See, no one will ever answer this question again because of that. And also, frankly, because some of the other titles I haven't played as much yet. So, at the end of the year, ask me again. It might be a different answer. But I will say that Quantum is shaping up to be an incredible game, a great story, a lot of innovation with what they're doing with that title, not just on the narrative but also gameplay. You know? And I think it's great to have it's just different fun to have a great third-person shooter. I think the whole time freezing and all that kind of evolving on what they originally created with bullet time and how they're evolving that and how that. And the live action all changes and impacts the outcome of the game. I think it will suck people deep in. They will love it. It'll be something that will be magical for them too. And so that's the title I'm most looking forward to. Just sitting down and just spending hours and hours playing.
Which of the three? We're going to keep playing this game.
Oh, you got me to answer it. But now it's like pick your second favorite child.
Which of the three Xboxes has been your favorite? Because obviously, you can you could make a marketing answer here as far as like which one did the best, but there are sentimental answers. I'm genuinely curious, which of the three Xboxes has been your favorite so far?
I truly, and this is not a marketing answer, I truly can't just pick one favorite because I do like each of them for different reasons. And for the original Xbox, I think what we did, in such a short period of time and a lot of the bets we made, and we were a small group of people kind of just doing whatever we want, you know, and it was mostly off the shelf parts to put that thing together. And it was a pretty expensive box to make happen. And the game content was a little all over the place, but we had some incredible titles that came out of that. And so there was a lot of magic in that. With Xbox 360, it felt like we just got everything right, and I think, building Xbox Live in, we did a lot, a lot of people, gave us a hard time about entertainment with Xbox One, but we did a lot of pioneering with entertainment on, with apps and having digital movies.
Netflix.
Totally. We had the 1080p streaming movies. We had Netflix. We did a lot of work with there. We worked with a lot of TV providers. We did a lot of interesting stuff there. In addition to having, what an incredible lineup of, games from the Gears franchise.
Mass Effect.
Exactly. It was just so many great games. Call of Duty kind of took off on 360.
That's true. It was a launch title, Call of Duty 2.
Project Gotham Racing, Forza. And so I just think there was a lot of greatness there. And I think with Xbox One, we're where we are right now, as I kind of spoke to, I think I'm really proud of what we've achieved over the last couple of years in particular. I think the team has made an incredible product. I think we have, industry-leading games lineup. I think as we look to this next year, you're right, we're going to have more games, more AAA games. We're planning on selling more games this next year than we did in 2015. And so if you're a gamer, I think we delivered for people this year. This past year, we're going to deliver again for them in 2016. And if you love Gears or you're interested in, what is ReCore going to be like? Or
what is ReCore? We literally don't know. There was a very vague trailer.
Or Quantum Break, or there's just so many great games coming, and I just say stay tuned, and we're excited to let people, get to play Sea of Thieves, and we've talked about we're gonna have a multiplayer Crackdown experience coming, and so there's just a lot of innovation happening, and so I think it'd be exciting to get to share more of that throughout the year, but it's gonna be a big year for gamers, and if you're an Xbox One owner, I think you're gonna be happy.
So how about, what was your favorite original Xbox game? And then give me your favorite 360 game. I'm always curious to ask these questions of the old school guys.
Okay, original Xbox game would be, I'm gonna go with Mech Assault.
Yeah,
because of
solid call.
Because one, it was a fun game, the amount of time I spent playing it, and the innovation that had around Xbox Live. and just really fond.
It's a good single-player game too.
It was a good single-player game, and it had a lot of good memories for me. It's just a really, really fun game. Off the top of my head, that's what I will pick. Later tonight, I'm sure I'll be like, oh, damn it.
We'll just dub it in.
Exactly, yeah. 3, this one will be hard because there's so many great games. But I'm going to surprise you with this one and say NCAA football.
What?
Yes. Here's the reason why. Listen, I'm with Snoop Dogg on this thing. Like, I want to play that thing on back and pat. I have very little control over if that happens or not. There is no NCAA football anymore.
There's got to be legal hurdles up the wazoo on that one.
I can only imagine.
Right, that's never going to be backwards compatible
But I miss it, to be honest. And so as a sports game, I like all kinds of games, and I'll play shooters and role-playing games, but I also play a lot of sports games and racing games, and.
Peter Moore, call him up. Peter, let's go.
Oh, poor Peter answers this question on Twitter and social. He's a good guy. He always gets hounded about why they don't make a baseball game every year or whatever.
That's me, actually.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
so good. But, NCAA football is a game I miss. And something fun about it. It took you to college stadiums, and, they had the pregame with ESPN, and
it was always kind of secretly a better game than Madden, which was always good, but like NCAA was kind of where a lot of the innovation came.
A lot of people, and then you could play mascots versus mascots and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and it was just really fun. And then you'd always try to get the rosters for the players to put the real names in. I remember I used to get a guy to mail me a memory card, and we'd pass it around the office. And so so I would say, just to pick something different, I pick NCAA football because I miss it. And I think it's funny that Snoop Dogg's been so actively asking for this to be back and pat, sending people to our Xbox feedback site to go vote for it. I don't know if you've seen that. It's just crazy. And so I voted.
All right.
While I don't have a lot, we'll see. May the lawyers be with us. So.
2 last questions for you. Do you think marketing video games is easier or harder than marketing other products? Because you did have some experience with Nestle and putting things on trains and buses, and then of course your bit of time at Disney. So what do you think? Is it because you've got a very engaged audience, as you know every day from social media and Xbox Live and what have you, which can be good and bad, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think? Is it easier or harder?
For sure it's more fun. Yeah. I mean, for sure it's more fun.
More fun than Toll House cookie dough and figuring out.
Well, I'm thinking of like if you're doing like cereal or you're doing you're the Pop-Tarts guy or something So sorry, I'm sure
that's Kellogg's.
Yeah, I know. They've been a good partner of ours too. But I would say it's different. The difference with gaming. Well, you kind of hit on the first point. The level of passion of our fan base is almost unmatched.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we often talk about, or one of the things like people that don't know gaming at all, I'll say, listen, like there's a few things that people get so emotional about that they'll dig through your trash, they'll demand answers to, they'll stop you in the streets, and it's like
iPhones,
right, iPhones, exactly, iPhones, politics, like
sports.
Stuff they put all over their Facebook, sports, like celebrity entertainment kind of thing, and then like video games, and so it just has, and that's what is so fun because people have so much passion. It's something that people love, and the industry is so rich with just so much. Our fans have so much. When we did the thing at E3, we said, listen, we're gonna let first 500 people, if they want to come to E3, show up at this place at night, and if you show up, we didn't actually tell them you get into E3, but we did this fan fest thing. We had 500 people sleep out overnight.
Wow!
Like to go to a free media conference, right? Like it was just crazy. Like I'm guessing that. If I was the Pop-Tarts marketing manager and offered to reveal the next flavor of Pop-Tarts, there probably wouldn't be 500 people sleeping out, but that's what makes it amazing. I think marketing versus other products, it's very different, because we have to market and launch so many new things.
Right.
It's very different than sustained marketing where, think about a soft drink company. It's sugar water, right?
Yeah.
And so you're basically it's marketing about creating events and engagement and things with your fans, but it's not about new products as much. And we have to market new products, and some of those are new. Take Recore, brand new IP. We have to go build a new brand. We have to explain people the characters, what the game's about, and create when people to get to I want to buy your product, there's a long process that they go through of like awareness, discovery, engagement, to where they actually go, I'm willing to buy it.
Right.
And that journey to take people on. Whereas like if I don't know if you're a Coke or Pepsi guy or whatever, but
I'm more of a Coke guy. I gotta
okay,
say.
good to know. Good
more
to
of a
know.
Coke guy.
Good. So you probably know what you're going to go buy at the supermarket, right? And so it's just a different thing. But
at
it's
least you
fun.
don't have
That's
to. At
the
least you don't have to find 17 different new ways every year to market the same sugar water over and over again. That would drive me nuts, right?
That is true. That is true. And so, but I'll tell you, some of the best marketers work at those companies because they have to create something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And they tend to have also pretty big budgets to do the Super Bowl and all this, right? Like, so they do marquee things to engage their fans, and that is also not much about marketing a product. This is about building a brand,
right?
And so that fascinates me too. But we mostly, we do a lot of brand building with Xbox. We get to market and launch a lot of great products, and they're maybe a little bit more like launching and marketing movies or another form of entertainment. And I think that's more similar to what we do than a lot of other products that people market.
So last question I have for you is, Phil Spencer's a guy who obviously he's the head of Xbox. He's the public face of the company as well, and deservedly so. He's a guy that the community, I think, really appreciates because, as you mentioned, he is a legit gamer. He's not a suit that's running a business who has never laid his hands on the controller. He's got the street cred to back up his professional cred as well.
Yes.
So, but I'm curious, the Phil Spencer we see is the guy on stage with a big smile because he's presenting some new thing that he's excited about. What is Phil Spencer like as a boss to work for?
Well, first I'll say the thing I love about Phil is there's only one Phil. Like what you see on stage, if you run into him at an event, if you're in a meeting, like when I see him in the hall, like that is truly who he is. He is genuinely one of the best, folks I've gotten to work with ever in the industry. He is really special. I think he's got an incredible vision for the business. He's known as the nice guy, right?
Yeah.
And he is a super nice guy and never curses, and he's just
never.
I don't think I've heard him curse.
Not when he gets
teabagged
in Halo.
We made these buttons when we launched that said, we didn't make them, but the engineering team made that said "Ship happens." Ship happens. Kind of engineering humor. He wouldn't wear one.
Huh.
So he's the guy has a very high standard, which I admire. And with that said, he's pretty tough too. And he will push you hard and is never really satisfied. And I think that's part of the desire and hunger that he has to do more, to do better, And so I think that's what makes some of the best leaders, in any industry is their hunger to continue to innovate and do new things. And while Phil, I think is, I know he sits on like the ESA board, the industry board, and works a lot with a lot of the leaders. He works with all the CEOs of the other companies, whether it's Take-Two and Strauss or Andrew at EA or other folks in the industry. And he works with the Sony and Nintendo guys, and he gets along with everybody. And he's genuinely a super great guy. But he pushes us hard on the business, and it's not a cakewalk going in and presenting and taking Phil through stuff. He's tough. He knows his stuff. The other thing is he has a pretty good sense of humor. In fact, I think on that note, I have this shirt that I wear that he has never seen.
He has never.
I'm going to very
you
carefully.
You are repping the brand. You got an Xbox sweatshirt here.
I am repping the brand.
What's happening right now?
This is a shirt that actually a fan made and sent to me. And I was going to reveal it. I hope this all works out okay for IGN.
As long as the mic is still.
I think the mic is, okay. So this is the shirt. Phil, if you're watching, I'm going to start wearing this to meetings with you. Have people seen this? It's the X-Boss. Now, how many people do you work for that people love so much they've actually made a T-shirt out of him? I've got a Phil Spencer T-shirt, maybe one of a kind. And I secretly wear it a lot, as you've seen.
And that's the young Phil Spencer there too.
It is. He's probably a little thinner and a little more fit now. So that bastard. But anyway, we love Phil. I mean, and Phil, I on Twitter would write, "In Phil we trust." We trust Phil. We love Phil, and he's gotten us where we are today. And I think we blindly follow him into the future. And he is one of those great leaders that, when people write books about this industry or about video games or this era, what Phil has done so far, and I think what he will continue to do over the many years, is going to be, really, really special. And I'm just excited to be part of it and get to work with him. And he's a friend of mine too, so I feel fortunate that way as well.
Well, the next time you go to buy an Xbox game and you see some cool TV commercial for it, odds are this gentleman right here, Aaron Greenberg, had something to do with it. Aaron, thank you so much for stopping by. This was a fascinating insight into your life and the Xbox world and what it takes to make Xbox games and get them out into the world. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go make a Steve Butts t-shirt, an IGN Boss t-shirt. So, Aaron, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This has been IGN Unfiltered, and tune in every month where we'll be sitting down with someone hopefully as interesting as Aaron. You're setting the bar very high here, my friend.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
All right, thank you.